few minutes. It's going to be Stacy right there.
I'm a little late today. Okay, sorry.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's 7 p.m. We'd like to welcome everybody out to the American Fork City Council meeting on this August 8th of the year 2023. Appreciate your attendance. And the agenda that is before us has been posted in the right places at the right times, and so this meeting is publicly notified, and we will follow the agenda as outlined. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance that I will lead you in, and then we'll have an invocation by Councilmember Barnes, and then I will conduct the roll call. If everybody would please stand.
Our Father in heaven, as we begin this American Fork City Council meeting, we come before Thee to acknowledge Thee and give thanks for the many blessings and for the freedoms that we enjoy. We're grateful for the opportunity and blessing of self-government, where we have the opportunity to choose and elect those to represent us. We're grateful for all of those who serve in this community in any way, for our dedicated employees, for our police and fire departments and the service they render in protecting us and our lives. We're grateful for the good people who live here and for the good things that they do, many of which go unseen. We are grateful for those who serve in the military, especially those from our community, as they serve to protect our freedoms and the freedoms of other lands and other peoples. We ask Thee, Father, as we meet this evening, that we might have good discussion and discourse, that the agenda items might be properly discussed and voted on for the good of this community. We ask that Thou will continue to bless our community and our nation. And we thank Thee again for the many blessings we enjoy. Pray for the others that Thou hast for us and that we need. And we do this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Okay, I'll now conduct the roll call. Councilmember Hunter? Here. Councilmember Shelton? Here. Councilmember Barnes?
Here.
Councilmember Carroll?
Here.
Councilmember Taylor?
Here.
Okay, item number 2 is a period of time we set aside for public comment. Anybody that would wish to address the mayor, the city council, and our senior staff, we would have you come forward at this time. We would ask you to state your name for the public record and limit your comments to 2 minutes. And so we'll now open up this mic. Okay, seeing none, we'll close the public comment period and we'll move on to item number 3, the city administrator's report. David.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have a couple of items to report. The Timpanogos Special Service District, which is a board that I am assigned to be on, we have been discussing the transfer of the district from a special service district under the county to a special district, a standalone special district. And what that would mean is that the district would no longer be a subset of Utah County, it would be a self-standing board. And so that proposal has been being discussed by our board for several months, and a proposed resolution will be coming forward to the City Council to consider. Every member entity of Timpanogos Special Service District would need to approve that in order for that to take effect. So American Fork City Council would be taking action on that, and we hope to have that in front of the council probably in 2 weeks. So the other thing that I would like to report on, if I can grab this information, and give me just 1 second. Got to get the glasses on. Here we go. We are going to have a night out against crime, and that will be Thursday night, this Thursday night at the Robinson Park. And this is a great event. We're going to have a lot of activities there, most notably a dunk tank, which I believe, Mayor, you on an annual basis get in that dunk tank. Hopefully we don't put ice in the dunk tank this year, like has been done in the past. But we would like to invite all of the community to come out. It starts at 6 o'clock, 6 to 8:30. Thanks, Camden. And it's a great event, and we have this every year, and there's a lot of support for that. We invite the entire community to come to that and support our police department in those efforts. So thank you.
Thank you, David. Appreciate that. Yes, the mayor is happy to be dunked, and there is somebody that always sponsors, so it's double your money, and I have no problem taking his money and getting dunked as many times as we possibly can for a very good cause to support our police department. Okay, we'll now move on to item number 4, our council reports. We'll start with Councilmember Hunter.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Just one quick thing. Wanted to just report from the library board. We had Cassandra sent out an email giving us some updates. Summertime's a little less frequent for our board meetings, but summer reading program was a huge hit. I just pulled up the email, but we were over 3,200 participants. And surprising to me was that over 800 of those were adults. And so significant undertaking and huge thing. And kudos to staff. They also were very appreciative of the wage adjustments that have recently taken place or will be taking place. And I know everybody's super excited about that. We've had a lot of turnover in the library, and that's just one of the tricks with that area, obviously. But this will definitely help and certainly show an appreciation to those who are doing so much with so little. So that's all I have to report, Mayor.
Thank you for that report. Councilmember Shelton.
Thanks, Mayor. Just wanted to, I didn't get a chance last time, so I wasn't here, but say thanks to Still Days. What a great event that was. Awesome to participate in that. As part of that report, just the Beautification Committee had their annual dinner with the people that were in the garden tour, and it was awesome to be able to meet with the residents there and talk with them, and it was a great time. I think it's interesting what they're doing, and doing these classes at the library has done a lot to get the community more involved and becoming more knowledgeable about gardens. And then they also have started up working with the American Heritage School has donated or allowed them to use a piece of their property, and they've created some big greenhouses there. And anyone can go there and buy fresh produce and things of that nature that's all organic, and the Beautification Committee's been working in there. And so they're hoping to get a lot of support from the public and get word out about it, that it could be something that'd be supportive, especially with the multi-housing that takes place. People don't have that opportunity to garden, can be able to go up there, dedicate some time, and be able to get some fresh produce. So it's been great to see that partnership start to flourish.
Thank you. That's a wonderful update. Thank you. Councilmember Barnes.
Thank you, Mayor. I have nothing to report.
Okay. All right, Councilmember Carroll.
Thank you. I have nothing to report tonight.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Taylor.
Yes, I was gone last week along with Rob, and so I just wanted to throw my kudos towards the staff and the chamber and all those who worked so hard for Still Days. I thought it was a huge success. It was a great time. Really loved the drone show. It was a new element. I just really appreciated that, and was fairly surprised about the number of people that showed up in the park to be able to watch that. But man, that was significant. That was really cool. So I'm glad that we were able to get those funds to be able to do so through the park tax that we have, and communities from all over American Fork donated so that we could have a great show and drone show. So again, thanks for all of the hard work and all of the effort that went into it. For those of us who just went and enjoyed it, was a great time, and really appreciate everything that goes into our city celebration and the celebration of community that it is. So that's all I have, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. All right, now item number 5 is the mayor's report. I have a prepared statement I'd like to read. The Americans with Disabilities Act, ADA, is a crucial piece of legislation outlined in the Code of Federal Regulation and overseen by the U.S. Department of Justice. The ADA mandates that municipalities identify and rectify any physical barriers that hinder the accessibility of programs and activities for individuals with disabilities. Over the years, our city has diligently updated its design standards in compliance with this act, which has released updates over the years since it was originally instated in 1992. American Fork City is currently in the process of developing resources to identify and address various accessibility shortcomings. This will include deficiencies reported by the public, as well as those we have self-identified. By undertaking this initiative, we aim to ensure continued adherence to federal requirements. According to the ADA, any municipality with 50 or more employees must establish a transition plan. This plan will serve as a roadmap to address ADA deficiencies and schedule projects accordingly. This announcement marks the beginning efforts of the ADA transition plan and will regularly communicate updates to the public through various city channels. Your engagement and collaboration are vital as we work towards creating a more inclusive and accessible American Fork City. That is the mayor's report. We'll now move on to the common consent agenda consisting of the 4 items that we see before us. Carolyn, has there been any changes to the minutes that have been requested? Okay. Any questions on the common consent agenda, council?
Mayor, I'd move approval of the common consent agenda.
I'll second.
Okay, have a motion by Councilmember Taylor and a second by Councilmember Shelton. Any discussion on this motion? Seeing none, I'll call for a roll call vote. Councilmember Carroll?
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor?
Aye.
Councilmember Barnes?
Aye.
Councilmember Hunter?
Aye.
Councilmember Shelton?
Aye.
Okay, on to the action items. We have a review and action on a resolution approving a land use amendment of 4.35 acres from design industrial to industrial lands, school and public facility designation at approximately 9 West, 1100 South. Any questions council has regarding item number 1 on the action items? So I'm glad Patrick is sitting up close tonight.
I had some questions on it. I just wasn't sure who the applicant was or who was requesting that it be changed.
It's actually the city requesting to change staff. The Pony Express Road is running across that direction, and our land use map doesn't actually outline the institutional lands zone. So we're trying to do that now, so that as the project comes before you, or the development comes before you in the coming weeks, that with an approval for that institutional lands use, it can annex in as a PF zone, which is congruent with the rest of the surrounding areas and routes. It's just that the underlying land use doesn't It doesn't specify that at the moment. It's kind of a housekeeping issue that we're trying to address.
So this would be for Pony Express. Is that the same as Vineyard Connector, or is this a whole different route?
I don't know what we call it at this point.
That's the same alignment.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know at one
So
point
it's
they
the
were
UDOT.
separate. I'm just not sure if they've merged now and if we're,
I think
They've changed the official location where Pony Express starts and ends. That would start in Saratoga and come through American Fork, basically to 1500 South and about 500 East. And then at that point where it crosses the railroad tracks, then it would be the Vineyard Connector as it goes down through Linden and into Vineyard.
so if we changed our master plan, transportation master plan to match that alignment then?
Yeah, the alignment is
Updated.
correct in the master plan.
Is it safe to say, my understanding is that the alignment is essentially the same. It's really calling this section, I don't want Vineyard Connector and AF. I want the Vineyard Connector and Vineyard, we'll call this the Pony Express Parkway.
No, and I was
The
just
the
wondering.
Vineyard Connector did have one piece that went diagonal through the TOD at one point, and so that is not reflected in our master plan. We show it as a previously approved environmentally cleared alignment for that
Yeah.
part of the vineyard, but we've taken that off of our proposed
Gotcha. My
alignment.
apologies, off this map, it was hard to even get addresses and trying to understand exactly where this parcel is at. So this then is already in our master transportation plan.
It is.
Okay. And then, gotcha. The landowner, the only thing I'm wondering is the landowner been notified and aware of this zone change then?
Yep.
Okay.
We've discussed it with them. Their annexation will come at the next council meeting.
Okay, gotcha. And then, okay. Just have a little bit of concern there. We've done some right-of-way acquisition for UDOT in the past, and it seems to come back and bite us sometimes. And so I get concerned sometimes utilizing that. And so I just want to be
So
careful.
this would just be the zoning, the rezoning of the parcel, not an
Yeah.
acquisition of it at
I
this
get it.
time.
I anticipate there's an acquisition forthcoming on
From
it.
UDOT.
From UDOT.
The city
Okay.
won't be involved in that. We're not requiring any dedication for another agency.
Perfect, that helps answer that question. Thank you.
I want to, Mayor, if I could, I, again, appreciate the notes and the discussion from the Planning Commission. I particularly appreciated Chairman Anderson when Bruce voted nay, asking for his description, and he went into great detail in that. It was very helpful as you read through that. And so, again, just terribly invaluable to be able to get those notes and be able to best identify how to move forward with this, but I really wanted to make note of that. So Mayor, with that, I would move to approve the proposed land use amendment located at 9 West, 1100 South in American Fork City, Utah, 84003. I mean, I don't know where else, but Utah.
United States and the world.
From the residential low-density designation to the industrial lands, schools, and public facilities designation with instructions to the city recorder to withhold publication of the resolution subject to any conditions found in the public record of August 2nd, 2023 Planning Commission meeting.
Okay, have a motion by Councilmember Taylor,
I'll second.
second by Councilmember Hunter. Any discussion on this motion? Okay, I will call for a vote. Councilmember Shelton,
Aye.
Councilmember Carroll,
Aye.
Councilmember Hunter,
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor,
Aye.
Councilmember Barnes.
Aye.
Item number 2 is a review and action on an ordinance approving a code text amendment known as the Deer Park Code Text Amendment of the American Fork City Municipal Code, amending section 17.4.502 and 17.7.701. The code text amendment plans to provide outdoor storage areas for businesses located in the PI zone.
Mayor, I'd love to hear a little bit about this one. As I read through these minutes, this one was kind of a back and forth, and there was a lot of, I don't know, I didn't feel like Planning Commission necessarily came to, I mean, they obviously voted and came to an agreement, but I don't know, I'd be interested to hear.
Sure.
Do you feel like we came to a consensus that we've hit what?
I think there was a misunderstanding to some extent as well of the of the types of things that are being required and that can be required, as some of the requirements or specifics of the code that's being proposed would allow my position to make a determination on if the screening or certain types of screening is adequate based on what is being screened. It wasn't a city or staff initiated item. It's an applicant one, and Tyler Haran is here, and he can probably speak to some of the specifics of what they're asking for. But if there's anything on the staff side, I'm happy to answer as well.
Go ahead.
You're up.
Thanks. One of the items that was brought up, continuing, the one that made the most sense to me to ask about was, it wasn't the 7-foot fence or the 8-foot solid fence or anything like that. It is an industrial, and that was mentioned. It is an industrial zone, so, you kind of got to count on that. We have a road dividing that from residential, so there shouldn't be anything. But when they talked about the transfer of ownership, and if there was going to be some type of approval process prior to that, it didn't ever seem like that was resolved, whether the city would be able to say year after year, okay, this is approved use or this is not. It seemed a little convoluted, and I didn't get any sense out of it by the time I got to the end of it, so that's what
I think it would be an approval for a specific use. If that use were to change, that would be something that we may need to open back up if the site plan were to change. If the council's happy with it being, if the use continues and there's no changes to that use, then
Why
the
would there be a
original
need?
approval
Yeah.
would change. But if it's something that needs to be revisited at certain points, that could be something that's
It's our
looked at as
prerogative
well.
to do
If
that.
the intensity of the storage were to change, the height of what's being stored there, if it's being stacked. But I also believe that the majority of the tenants want their developments to look good as well, and having large piles of stuff down there probably would be unsightly for them as well. But that's up to everyone to determine for themselves too, I think.
The one that came up to me just as an example is IFA. They have an outside storage, and that was a big controversy with residents. It's for some of us that were here during that time, and we see that outside storage sometimes sneak out and there's just pallets stacked, right? And that's not necessarily an industrial, but I could see that being the same case for industrial. You're getting a bunch of material delivered, it's being loaded off of an 18-wheeler, you're waiting to put it into the warehouse, things of that nature. I could see where this outside storage comes into play. A couple of things I'm trying to foresee what issues are gonna be out there with the code. One being, is it allowed to be a conditional use that we can allow, and more of a checklist, that they meet this checklist that they could do? Because as I read through here, sometimes it's in there and it says a lot of this is up to the determination of the development services director, aka Patrick, in this. And so one thing I worry about, is I've seen that happen, is and you're not leaving anywhere, right? So, but if there is any changeover in staff and we have that, and there's not necessarily like a set checklist, and it just says, hey, if it's attractive according to this person's opinion, that person changes, how do we have that consistency without some kind of a
framework
way of
is it?
doing that? And hopefully
Yeah.
that makes your job a little bit easier than going, well, sure, that one looks attractive, well, that one looks really ugly, I don't like the color pink brick, right? I don't know how you go about that, and I hope that would just be a little bit of a list. Conditional use, it's approved, it means boom, 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 and then it's allowed. And I also thought, I didn't see in here where that was done on the site plan. So I also thought that this would need to be on a site plan approval. That way there's a record of it, we've got a map, and then,
And we would require the outdoor storage as a permitted use to go through the site plan process.
okay, and I didn't see
And
that
if-
in here.
does reference in the discussion. I don't know if
Yeah, if that's something that you feel like needs to be included, just so it specifies that it goes through, I think that has been the intention, but I can see where if it's not specified, that,
I didn't see it in the
that there can
code
be an argument,
specifically
yeah.
said that way, and I think that would be good. That way we have something to go back to and reference, and I think it's good to do the site plan because you have all these different lots, and how are they all gonna look together, and we
Mhm.
wanna try to see that it's all similar. Maybe one location on one lot might hamper the ability of another one to be right next to it, and you need to adjust it or something of that nature. So I was thinking site plan, and then also just trying to, instead of making it an allowed use, it's a conditioned use, and then here's the conditions you have to meet. And that would hopefully take away some subjectivity. You can't eliminate all subjectivity, but at least give some framework to it.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna comment. I don't love the idea of having open outdoor in this zone. And part of that is, if you go down to those planned industrial zones, they're not like industrial as in a factory. They're like nicer buildings that are enclosed, and I was just looking at the intent that's here, that's written here. And really, it says multiple times about how it's supposed to look nice and even have the aesthetic qualities of city parks. And I know they had intended to have some landscaping around it.
Yep.
But to me, I need some compelling reasons why we should suddenly just allow it without any, I have been given no reason, other than a developer wants it, which I can completely see why they would want that, but.
Yeah, I think some of it boils down to, and I'll let, if the mayor's okay with it, I can let Tyler speak to the specifics of their project, but some of the different types of uses that go into the PI1 zone, a lot of them are warehouse types of things, but some of the warehouse use, the items are so bulky that they're hard to have just inside of a building. They're hard to get in and out. They're just the volume of them as well. Without going into specifics of anyone's.
Okay, fair, that's fair.
Yeah.
The thought come to my mind when I was reading through this was if anybody attended our Strata tour.
Yep.
So they have, they have these nice tilt-ups where they keep some equipment. They do have even office space that's according, but they have a very, of course, this is a good company, I think, but they have area that's outside that they're storing a lot of conduits. It's in those big rolls. And but they make sure that they're very, very organized, and I thought that could not fit in. You couldn't build a big enough warehouse to put that in, nor would it be appropriate. That's an outside storage. So this is a nice yard to supplement something that's going on the indoors.
And I think that's one of the key points. It wouldn't be that you can just have outside storage as a use. It should not be, and I think that might be something that might need to be clarified, but it should not be something that is a single use. It needs to be subservient to a primary business or use on the site, meaning you need to have the office warehouse structure as the primary business, but because you can't store all of the things inside based on volume of them or the size of the things or just how awkward they might be to get in and out, that you need that outdoor storage. Not that you can have outdoor storage as a standalone use to store RVs or as a impound yard. We have that as permitted uses in other parts of the city, and I don't think that would fit with the planned industrial intent.
I think that's where the conditional use versus just an allowed use. If it's an allowed use, you give much more broader ability to someone to come in and make that application. It's a right off the bat of just being in that zone, right? So long as they meet the code. But with the conditional use, it allows us to put those conditions in place to say, okay, we can specify what's being stored there, and things of that nature. And if that use changes, right, changes ownership, then that conditional use permit may need to be able to come back. Those are just thoughts that I had, and why I thought maybe the conditional use was the right way to go.
Mayor,
Councilman
I
Ryder.
appreciate your comment about that tour out there, because that actually, I was trying to come up with a scenario, because one thing I'm hesitant to do is, we establish a parking area. If we go and then, okay, this tenant, for example, I don't even know the circumstances of this scenario, so maybe I'm speaking out of turn, but if we were to take what was supposed to be parking space or drive aisle for, access, you know what I mean?
They would still need to meet parking.
All of
They
that.
need to meet. You can't take away parking. You can't take away landscaping because then you're not in conformity with your approved
Right.
site plan. So
Okay.
those would be things that we would be taking into consideration as well.
The scenario that you mentioned out there in the basin it's like adjacency. And it's that area that has these outside storage. While it's still a part of their complex.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm intrigued by Rob's suggestion of a conditional position. I don't know enough about it, I guess, to really know that, but.
So, some of the similar things we have in our code is that it's a permitted use subject to the conditions outlined of, these are the checkoff points rather than needing to go through conditional use permits each time, but also if that is something that's more preferred, that's still an option
I just like the
too.
idea of having some sort of a structure that allows for, next time it comes up, oh, well, this is why we allowed it last time, this is why we're not allowing it this time. That's really what I'm looking for. And if it's that simple, then you're the expert at that. But-
Well, let me ask you the question, Patrick, do you feel like you have enough, enough, discretion to make these decisions, or do you just feel like this is so broad that this is going to be,
I
there's a
think
lot
it
of
really
ambiguity.
comes down to a case-by-case basis, and what's being stored out there. Is it necessary for the functionality of a specific business that's being brought in? If someone wants to put in a storage yard and lease it out to someone else that's not that tenant, that's problematic, and that would be something that we would likely, on the planning and zoning side, have our enforcement team involved in to address. And I think that's something that may need to be clarified, but I'm confident in my ability to check everything, but like Councilmember Shelton mentioned, I understand that if there's ever anyone else who's making a decision on it, what I feel might be acceptable and someone else might have a different opinion on that. So if there are specific parameters or guidelines that you would like as the council for me to consider when looking at that, I'm okay with that.
That's why I think the conditional approval makes sense, and it seems like that's what they were trying to come to in that question I posed to you earlier.
Yeah.
Okay, because we didn't want it to go to enforcement. We wanted to be able to kind of shut that off, kind of a fence or an ambulance before that, saying, hey, let's prevent it from happening. With that conditional use, we could probably do that and still allow for, I mean, we always have to plan for the very worst scenario. And, but not often, it happens, but not often are we, constantly put in that position. But I feel like, echo what Rob says, I think that could help us to just have that delineated and make sure it's there.
I mean, I do worry a little bit about the pressures on staff when it's not very clear, because then the developer's reading it and they're like really angry at you because they do not see it the same way without some of those details in there. And I don't
We
like
have
to-
that with the details
Oh.
too. It's okay.
Okay, well, and I don't want to legislate every minute detail either, but some
I think
parameters.
that's why that
yeah.
works.
David, do you have
The
something?
council certainly has the option to approve it, deny it, or even table it pending maybe a further investigation, have this be a conditional use. I think conditional use has some merit.
We would still bring a site plan, if someone wants to do it as that permitted use. We do have permitted uses, but because it's attached to a commercial entity, it would come forward as a commercial site plan, so Planning Commission, City Council will get to review it, even if the initial development is done and a storage yard comes after the fact, we would still run the storage yard through. The recommendation of whether it's satisfactory from my perspective would be, is it satisfactory enough that we can put it on an agenda, that you'd be satisfied to at least review it at that point.
Hey, Patrick, I think one concern we might have is that the state legislature is modifying approvals of site plans that they would not come to council potentially in the future, next year.
Is it site plans or it's
Plats.
final plats for residential and not for,
I think site
commercial.
may be impacted as well.
okay.
Well, I would see this not necessarily, if we did a conditional use, our planning commission does conditional use right now all the time, so I wouldn't see this needing to come to us. I would have trust and faith in that planning commission to be able to look at that. Staff would have a really good packet, and then we could be able to say yea or nay, and it's on the record, and if someone says, well, why does Jim down the road have that? We're here with the facts and the merits, all on the public record, it's right here, very easy and transparent.
I agree. If we were to table this, then we could come back with a proposal to have it be a conditional use with some parameters that the council would feel comfortable with.
Just a couple of comments, having sons in construction. My understanding that construction company could go into this zone, is that correct?
Sure, any company.
So
Yes.
if the construction company owns, as they all do, a track hoe and a couple of dump trucks and all that other stuff, can that be parked in that area?
I need to look at the specifics of the code because I think it says that you can't park fleet vehicles and other
It said
items.
fleet vehicles, but if I own, I don't know, 3 dump trucks and 2 track hoes and 1 front end loader, is that a fleet? How do you define the fleet? There's some open ends to this. I appreciate
Yeah.
your effort on
The-
this.
The way I would review that would be, is it a vehicle specific for the use of the company? Is it owned by the company? If it's,
Yeah.
if it's an
They own
individual
them and-
car, you're parking in the parking lot, but
No,
if
it's
it's a company
the heavy
vehicle,
equipment that
from the
construction
staff
people
perspective,
have.
our interpretation would be that that's a fleet vehicle and it shouldn't be parked there.
It is a fleet vehicle?
And it should not be parked in an outdoor storage space.
Well, in that case, I think we need to make sure that's clarified. I do like the idea of having some kind of a check-off list. I do trust you. I hope you know that, and I think you do a great job in monitoring all these things, but one of these days, you're going to tick somebody off.
One of these days.
It hasn't happened yet, but one of these days you will.
Oh, hey.
And then I just don't want him coming in and trying to say, well, he's discriminating, for lack of a better word, against me because he's approved such and such. That's basically the same thing. So I think to protect you
Oh, I appreciate
and
that.
the rest
yep.
of the staff and the city and everybody, I think some kind of, and I hate this because I hate more work. Some kind of a good, easy, simple to understand, very clear checklist that covers the majority of the cases. We'll never get them all, but I think something like that would be good. One concern I have is, in a sense, the final approval coming to you and you having the final say-so. You being that position, not you personally, but that position, let's say.
Yeah.
I think the potential in the future could be there for some real problems. I'm not against this, but I think we just need to be aware that having a final decision by one person sometimes is a problem. But in the case of efficiency and everything else, that's the way it needs to be.
It
I
wouldn't
just don't,
necessarily balance on just me. It would be for me to have the ability, say, if it moves forward, because the site plan would still need to be approved
as
by
long as all the other checks
bodies.
are in and it
And then
sounds
it's
like they
also,
are.
if, you know, if the appropriate screening's in place and everything, that satisfies to some extent the things that I'm looking
That
at.
you're looking at.
But we have fire and engineering who also need to check off to make sure that you're not impacting a site triangle for someone coming in and out.
those other
And that it's
things,
also,
right.
depending on what's being stored out there, fire has access to get in for, in case of a need for public
the
safety
fire.
to be
So
there.
you feel there are enough other controls that potential abuse could or would be limited in the future?
I think it would be mitigated by the fact that there are so
There's
many
enough
other
other
people
things,
who
okay.
would be involved in it. And the final approval would run through planning commission and city council.
I'm gonna beat a dead horse here because we've already beat it.
And we'll put it in a storage area, yeah.
The dead horse in the storage area. I don't think that's allowed in this.
It's not.
zone.
Well, it's conditional use.
It's only in the RA1, so.
So all I wanted to say is that we often approve things that we don't necessarily like because we feel like they qualify for the zone. So I'd like to deter as much as possible things that we absolutely do not want in this area ahead of time so that we don't get in that scenario where we feel like,
Yeah.
you know, the planning commission is gonna feel compelled to approve something if it fits the things that are in the code, regardless of if they're like, that's a terrible idea to put that down there. I know because we've been in this scenario before. Like, we're like, I don't like this, this is horrible, this doesn't fit what I think it is, but yeah, substantially, they fit the zone.
Mayor, if I could, I think we've talked enough.
You know what, do you mind if I bring in our, would you like to say anything, Mr. Haran? I'm gonna give you time, you're the applicant, and then we'll kind of make a decision here.
Yeah, I totally get the perspective. I don't know who said it. You guys have to look at the worst case scenario, which, because of the code, that's what you have to fall back on. From our perspective, right, there's businesses that want to come to your city, big nationwide businesses. The kind of use that they need is with this outdoor storage, and where are they going to go? An industrial zone seems like the right place for them to go. Now, I know there's tons of considerations that have to go into it, but I would just say it's a business. I think it makes sense in this zone, in this place. However, we have to word the code to make it so that we can limit someone that would abuse it. Totally understand that, but I'm not hearing anything that sounds like you're opposed to having these businesses come in here. It's just finding how to limit the ones that would abuse it. So.
All right, thank you.
So, Mayor, with that, I would move to table action for the proposed code text amendment, amending section 17.4.502 and set section 17.7.701 to allow outside storage in the PI1 zone. Instruct the staff developer to come back with a conditional use proposal.
I'll second that.
Okay, I have a motion by Councilmember Hunter, second by Councilmember Carroll. Any discussion on this motion?
It doesn't be part of the motion, but if I could just make one request when it comes back, that one other consideration was, and we've talked about this before, butting up against residential areas. So I just see some places where that PI butts up against residential. Sometimes there's a street separating it, sometimes there's not. And we've talked about in the past wanting to create some kind of a buffer. But if we're looking at this storage, I just hate to be in the corner in someone's backyard, all of a sudden they've got, storage that's there. It'd be nice to have something that's looked at as part of that condition as well with those residential considerations.
Yeah.
Well, we
Good.
do have a road in this one that buffers between this zone and residential, do we not?
Well, I'm just looking at all of the PIs throughout the city.
There's some other
all of
parts
them.
that are adjacent to.
Gotcha. I thought we were talking about
being
this
part of the
specifically.
conditionality of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it adjacent to a residential neighborhood?
Yeah.
Yeah, all that.
Okay, I have a motion and a second, and I'm going to call for a vote. Councilmember Barnes.
Aye.
Councilmember Shelton.
Aye.
Councilmember Hunter.
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor.
Aye.
Councilmember Carroll.
Aye.
Okay, we'll have you guys work together, and we'll put this on as soon as we can. Okay, as soon as we have, get us an RCA when you feel it's prepared, we'll bring it back. Okay. Item number 3A is a review and action on an application for amended final plat known as AF Crossing Plat E3, located at approximately 856 South, 1000 West, in American Fork, Utah, 84003 in the United States of America. The final plat will be approximately 0.43 acres and will be in the PR3 zone. Questions on this? And where did this language? We gotta
Yeah, this is
putting
new.
all the new stuff in there.
Maybe they start putting in the GPS coordinates in there as well, right? I had a chance to look at it. Unless there's any considerations or concerns, I'm happy to make a motion to adopt the proposal of the amended final plat located at approximately 856 South, 1000 West, American Fork City, in the PR3 residential zone, with instructions of the city recorder to withhold recording of the plat, subject to all conditions identified in the public record of July 19th, 2023 Planning Commission meeting.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Councilmember Shelton, second by Councilmember Taylor. Any discussion on this motion? Okay, I'll call for a vote. Councilmember Carroll.
Aye.
Councilmember Barnes.
Aye.
Councilmember Hunter.
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor.
Aye.
Councilmember Shelton.
Aye.
Item number 4 is a review and action on an ordinance creating section 10.32.020 of the American Fork City Municipal Code relating to parking in a marked bicycle lane and provide an effective date.
Did
Question.
this come up because we ticketed somebody and they got out of it because they said, well, that's not illegal?
No, it's, I sat down with Derek recently and a few of the members of the Parks and Trails Committee, and the issue was brought up that, so we actually drove down to the area. There are a number of lengths of bike lanes in the TOD that are blocked by cars, which I think is ridiculous, and to avoid the instance that you mentioned, it would be nice to have something like that in other parts of the city, because, you know, you don't want to be going around cars that are parked in what's supposed to be dedicated use.
Is there a state law that already, no, I'm a little surprised.
So,
In addition to Patrick speaking with Derek, I have had a number of phone calls from law enforcement asking whether or not they could cite, because they couldn't find the code to cite them under. So,
And I think one of the things that needs to happen even with this, and I spoke to Scott and we'll need to talk to Chief about it as well, but we probably need to do a little bit of education for people for a short while before
At least a week.
be going
do it
out.
for at least a week.
Thinking 45 minutes, but okay.
If there is a mindless activity, though, it is finding a quick parking spot and pulling in and not carrying.
So,
And down in that area, it's crackers.
It is.
Cars are all over the place.
so the question is, you can't park where there's a bike lane,
Right.
basically, is what it boils down to, correct? Bike lanes are always on just one side of the street, or do we have streets that you
On
ride a
Center
bike, I
Street, so
don't?
Center Street, you can park on the curb, and the bike lane is on either side of you.
Right.
Or on the road side of you, and so, yeah. But in the TOD, it's different. Sometimes
Yeah,
it's right against the curb.
We don't have on-street parking in those areas, and, you know, people still utilize that because it's a bike lane, so I think it may help fire to some extent as well, if there's an issue of trying to get down and there's cars parked on both sides, or there's construction work happening, that area is building fast. When there's cars on one side and construction work on the other side, it's real narrow down there.
Oh, I agree. I drove my little moped down there the other day, and I could barely get through on that.
Kev's a biker now?
It's a moped, it's got a motor.
That's what I'm saying. Oh, boy.
He's got a Harley
So-
sticker.
Yeah.
Question that really amounts to is, if there's a bike lane on both sides of the street or no parking, there are literally areas in that TOD in particular where there would be no on-street parking. Is that correct?
Correct, but the parking is provided,
Should be provided.
it is provided elsewhere, it's, people are lazy.
Really?
Well, it's hard to believe,
I
I'm
didn't-
one of them.
I didn't believe
I got the guts
Yeah,
for it,
I just
but-
want to make sure that you see where I'm going.
Yeah.
Because people
It's
need a place to park.
It's a convenience,
Oh,
it's a convenience factor,
is.
but all of the developments are supposed to have guest parking, and there is a provision for parking for people who have their homes in those areas as well. This is just people who don't want to
They're supposed
drive
to have
into the
so many,
development.
yeah.
A lot of it is related to the construction happening as
And
well,
the
and
construction
I
is all
understand that
over
and
the place,
sympathize
yeah.
with that. There's a need for parking for people who are working down there on developing that area, but not in the bike lanes.
Okay.
A couple questions I had is, thinking through this a little bit, I don't think it's an issue down the TOD on this first issue, because garbage collection is usually in a dumpster serviced by a commercial truck. But as I was driving down North County Boulevard, there's bike lanes on both sides, and tomorrow's garbage pickup day for that area, and guess what everyone has in the middle of the bike lane, right on the curb, is their garbage can. As I read through this, there was no exception for garbage collection to go through, and my guess is they're not going to be weaving between each house to pick up that collection. So I don't know if that's an exception we need to put in here.
But isn't the bike lane outside of that section
No, it's right against the curb,
on North County?
yeah.
In areas.
In areas, yeah.
I'm just thinking right down as you come off, gosh, would that be down below 700? You're coming down the hill?
That's right against the curb?
Yeah, so it's just one white lane that's painted, and it has no parking in the bike lane. Signs are up there, I think probably UDOT put up there. But, and there's other places in town where we've got the bike lane right against the curb. They've talked about, anyway, I was worried about garbage collection and things of that nature, if we need to put an exception in there for that.
So maybe like in the operating in the bicycle lane section or something, because
Yeah,
like
it's
a
interesting.
motor bus or school bus may be
Right.
briefly driving, maybe we just add a garbage truck.
And then the other one I would suggest is what happens with a vehicle that's broken down, right? Do we allow for that? Someone's got a flat tire, there's an accident that happens, do they pull to the right side of the road, call the police, wait for the police to come up?
I mean, can we not have a logical exception of something like that? And I know you're not trying to, but I'm just saying, do we literally have to legislate everything? A garbage truck is not parked. A garbage truck is going down the road picking up trash. So why do we need to include a garbage truck in
Well,
here? And if a car broke down, you know what? I was going down the road. You can see that both my tires blew when I threw a rod through the top of my hood. I really couldn't go anywhere. I pulled off safely. I'll get this moved as quick as I can. I mean, holy cow.
If I could just maybe respond just briefly, we do have, if a car is broken down on I-15, right? They pull over to the side of the road, it's broken down. Our UHP give a grace period of time, but you also don't want to build in an exception for a broke down car because then you'll have the broke down car that's never moved. And so that would be something that we would just have to work with law enforcement. I have all trust in our officers. They're not going to go down the street citing people that are broke down. With respect to the trash pickup, perhaps we put in here a motor bus or school bus. Instead of having that, we just put an approved, an approved service vehicle. Yeah, may briefly drive within or through.
And I'm totally good with that, but if
Not
we
service dogs, though, just
but
service vehicles.
we look at the code, and that's the other thing is, and this is more semantics, but when I look at it and notice it, I thought, oh, parking. But it's, the ordinance is actually talking about operating a vehicle inside the bike lanes as well. So I don't know if parking really is the right way to call it, maybe parking and operating or something like that. But that's just the thoughts I had. And after 12 years of sitting on here, you see stupider stuff come up, to be honest with you. I mean, we're talking about having to cut trees that you think would just be common sense to have cut and things of that nature. So I appreciate it, but those are just the things I thought that maybe want to bring up. So I think with the service vehicles being there, I'm good with that. If you feel like we don't need anything for broken down vehicles, then I'm good with that as well.
It'd be my recommendation, with that concern being raised, just to, in your motion, alter the motor bus to a service vehicle, an approved service vehicle. And then I don't have a concern with broken down vehicles. It would actually give us more authority to make sure they got out of there timely.
Okay.
So with that, I'll make a motion to approve the ordinance creating section 1032.020 of the American Fork City Municipal Code related to parking in the marked bicycle lane and providing an effective date for the ordinance.
Second?
Okay.
So are you going to change that wording?
Oh, yeah, and to add that change, I apologize. Yes, the motor
Service.
bus or school bus to service vehicle, approved service vehicle. Thank you,
Okay.
Kevin.
Do we want to state a color? A yellow, or do we want to? Let's make.
Okay, I have a motion by
Let's just-
Councilmember Shelton,
Second.
second by Councilmember Barnes. Any discussion on this motion? Okay, I'll call for a vote. Councilmember Hunter,
Aye.
Councilmember Shelton,
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor,
Aye.
Councilmember Barnes,
Aye.
Councilmember Carroll.
Aye.
Okay, item number 8 is a review and action on approval of a memorandum of understanding with the State of Utah Department of Public Safety, accepting a grant in the amount of $17,250 for mental health services. These are great grants. I just appreciate it, Chief Bouchard, for all the hard work and the effort put into. to
Chief
write this
Bouchard
grant.
wanted to come up if he could and take 25, 30 minutes. Is that what you said, Chief?
I was hoping he could just come and kind of give us a description of what he
Yeah.
shared.
Chief,
Or an
could ya?
example of mental health, either way.
Read the grant, actually. Maybe do that.
It's interesting where.
Thank you, Chief.
You know
Really
what, it
appreciate-
is interesting
We're
where
glad to
these,
have you
where
here.
you actually find these grants and where did you find it? Where did you know where to look?
Really what it started is we, at the fire department and the police department as well, obviously, we're taking mental health pretty seriously. Pretty close to home for me. I had one of my best friends take his life this year. 25-year firefighter. never would have thought in a million years that we would lose him. And my job is kind of that area over at the fire department. Chief Brems has let me kind of run with that a little bit. And so we started looking into taking care of our people. We know that we have a very young fire department, and we haven't even begun to see the effects. Our firefighters are young and they're really busy, which is okay for now. But some years down the road, they're really gonna struggle. I have struggled, 18 years in this business. But luckily I've been through a lot of counseling. So we looked into different grants and different programs, and through the state of Utah, the Department of Public Safety does provide some funding. So this $17,000 is just initial. We are actually putting in for 17,000 more in the fall, which I expect we will do pretty well there. So total about $36,000 in grants for mental health, and all of these, just so you know, we have a little bit of obviously some housekeeping to do to receive this grant, and we're set up to basically just show the state we know where this money's going. They actually shared with us a nice little spreadsheet to track that money, so they know where it's going. But there's an awesome program that we're gonna become a part of, and it's paid for with this grant money. And we actually allocate money for counseling for our firefighters, but this will offset that. So we expect the amount of money going out from the city of American Fork to decrease significantly because we're able to provide it with this grant. So, Chief Brems is always about, we take taxpayer money very seriously, so we look for any way that we can save the city some money, and this, was an awesome opportunity for us. So kind of a win-win for the city for sure. So, any other questions? Or
That was excellent.
that was only a few minutes. I wanted to take 20, but I know everyone wants to get out of here.
Thank you,
so.
Chief. Just one quick question I
Yes.
had. This would be used exclusively for the fire department,
Yes.
for fire employees.
Correct.
Does it extend to family?
It does actually. That's a great
I
question.
couldn't see that anywhere. If it could be
Yes.
used, and
Yeah, in fact, I have the MOU right here in front of me, and it is for
oh, I see it. Yeah, sorry, I skipped right over that
so
part of it.
first responders, family members, and retired first responders as well. So we do have a few retired members of our fire department that would be a part of this grant as well. So
And who decides who gets the benefit of the money? Who decides who gets the money?
So we actually, part of this agreement and part of the program, every firefighter will have to go meet with a counselor over in the next 3 years. So every firefighter will benefit from the grant over 3 years. But there's any other additional support that members need after they've gone to a counselor and they're like, you need to come back and see us. That's what that money's for. So they will kind of determine, based on seeing all of our people, who needs the help more than others. So
Counselors will kind of rank those? Is that what you're saying, or something?
yes, and it is not mandatory, but we're going to kind of highly encourage all of our department members to visit with the counselor because it's free to them. And based on that initial session from that counselor, the counselor will then decide who will need further support. So,
Chief, thank you so much for writing it, for taking it serious. That is, it sounds like it has been tasked to you. We fully support you. And, as some really quick math, we're, between our fire department and our PD, we're pushing, what, $90,000 to $100,000 in mental health services of grant writing because of the two departments, and I think it's great. And, you know, the stigma years ago was it was a weakness. Now, I think it's completely, you know, changed, 360, that it's absolutely necessary. So, from the mayor and from this council, we support you 110%.
Well, we thank you.
Yes.
Even if we
thank
didn't
you.
get the grant, we know you'd pay for it. That's what's been awesome, is we know that we have the city's support, but having the opportunity to just seek these other opportunities to save, the city some money, obviously, we try to find that. So we appreciate the support, and we feel it from administration and mayor and council. We thank you, so.
Thank you, and it's great to be able to spend other people's money.
It really is.
I'd like to make a motion if everybody's ready. I'd move to approve the memorandum of understanding with the State of Utah Department of Public Safety accepting the $17,250 grant for mental health services and authorize the city to sign the memorandum.
Second.
Have a motion by Councilmember Barnes and a second by Councilmember Taylor. Any discussion on this motion? Okay, I'll call for a vote. Councilmember Barnes.
Aye.
Councilmember Hunter.
Aye.
Councilmember Carroll.
Aye.
Councilmember Shelton.
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor.
Aye.
Item number 6, do I have a motion to adjourn? Motion by Councilmember Shelton. Second by Councilmember Hunter. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Okay, thank you so much.